Part 1. The Perfect Marriage That Wasn't. My name is Ava Mitchell, and if you'd asked me 3 months ago whether I trusted my husband, I'd have said, more than anyone in the world. Now, I'm not even sure who that man really is. For 8 years, Ethan and I built what looked like the perfect life. We lived in a quiet neighborhood in Seattle, in a 2-story house with white shutters and a porch swing that creaked softly at night. Ethan worked as a software engineer for a large company, often traveling for business trips. I was a freelance designer who mostly worked from home. Together, we looked like the picture of stability, the couple that had it all figured out. But as I've learned, perfection can be a mask. And my husband wore his perfectly. The first crack. It started small, the way lies always do. One Thursday evening, Ethan came home late. He was exhausted, his tie crooked, eyes sunken. He kissed me on the forehead and mumbled something about a delayed flight. I believed him. Of course I did. He'd never given me a reason not to. Until I found the receipt. It was in the pocket of his jacket the next morning when I was doing laundry. A hotel receipt, not from Portland where he claimed to have been, but from Tacoma, just 40 minutes away. The room was booked for 2 guests. When I asked him about it, he didn't even flinch. "Oh, that must have been for my coworker and me," he said smoothly. "The company booked it under my name." And just like that, I dropped it. Because love, when it's deep, makes you doubt yourself before you doubt the other person. But something in my gut whispered that this wasn't nothing. It was the beginning. A stranger's text. 2 weeks later, I was making dinner when Ethan's phone buzzed on the counter. He was in the shower. I didn't mean to look, but the screen lit up. "Can't wait to see you again, Red Heart." My hand froze midair. For 30 seconds, I just stared at that message, my heart hammering in my chest. I opened it. It was from someone named C. The conversation was short but intimate. Little things about missing each other, a photo of a child's drawing that said, "Daddy," and then silence. I remember my knees giving out. I sat on the kitchen floor for what felt like hours, rereading those few messages until they blurred together. A child's drawing that said Daddy. My husband didn't have children. At least, not with me. Confrontation. When Ethan came out of the shower, towel around his waist and that easy smile on his face, I could barely breathe. "Who's C?" I asked quietly. He stopped mid-step. "What?" I showed him the phone. His eyes darkened instantly, and he snatched it from my hand. "Ava, you went through my messages? That's what you're worried about," I shouted. "Who is she, Ethan? And who's the child?" He stood there, silent. His jaw clenched, his hand gripping the phone like a weapon. Then he said the line that broke me in ways I can't describe. "It's complicated. Complicated." That's what he called it. He refused to talk that night. Packed a bag and said he'd stay at a hotel until things cooled down. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every sound, every creak of the house felt like a secret trying to speak. The investigation. The next morning, I decided to find the truth myself. If my husband had secrets, I'd drag them into the light. I started with that phone number, C. I saved it to my own phone and searched through social media, cross-checking profiles and area codes until finally a name appeared, Clara Reynolds. She lived in Tacoma, married once, but widowed, and she had a 6-year-old daughter. My heart stopped when I saw the little girl's photo. Her name was Lila. She had the same deep brown eyes as Ethan. The drive to Tacoma. By the time I reached Clara's neighborhood, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I didn't even know what I'd say if I found her, but I had to see for myself. Clara's house was a small, beige single-story home with a red door. There was a tricycle in the driveway. I parked across the street and waited. Half an hour later, Ethan's car pulled up. I swear, the world stopped moving for a second. He got out, walked up the path, and kissed Clara on the cheek before picking up Lila and spinning her around like a loving father coming home from work. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to run at him, to demand answers, but I just sat there, frozen behind the steering wheel, watching my husband laugh with his other family. My chest burned. My eyes blurred with tears until the car and house became nothing but shapes. When I finally drove home, I wasn't the same person anymore. Something inside me had shattered, something that would never fully heal again. The breaking point. That night, Ethan came home like nothing had happened. He smelled faintly of perfume, not mine. "I went to see her," I said. My voice was calm, too calm. "I saw them. You, Clara, and the little girl." He froze. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he sat down, rubbing his temples, as if he were the victim. "Ava," he whispered, "please let me explain." "Explain what, Ethan?" I snapped. "That you have a secret family? That you've been living two lives while pretending to love me?" Tears welled in his eyes, real or fake. I couldn't tell. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said. "It started years ago, before we got married. She was pregnant and I didn't know. When I found out, I couldn't abandon the child. So, you built a second life instead?" I hissed. He looked away. "I was trying to do right by everyone. I didn't want to lose you." That was the moment I realized the man I loved wasn't noble or confused. He was a coward, a liar who hid behind good intentions. The decision. The next few days were a blur of silence and tears. Ethan stayed in a hotel, calling me, begging for forgiveness, promising he'd end things with Clara. But it was too late. You can't end something that never should have begun. I hired a private investigator. I wanted proof. And what he found made my blood run cold. Ethan wasn't just visiting them. He'd bought that house in Tacoma 2 years ago, under Clara's name. He was listed as Lila's father on her birth certificate. And every month, he transferred money into Clara's account from our joint savings. Every lie I'd ever believed came crashing down. Every business trip, every late meeting, every missed call. It all made sense now. I wasn't just betrayed. I was replaced. Part 1 ending, the quiet before the storm. The night I filed for separation, it rained harder than it had in months. The sound against the windows was deafening, but inside the house, everything was still. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at our wedding photo, his arm around me, both of us smiling, oblivious. I took off my wedding ring and placed it next to the picture frame. My heart hurt. My mind screamed. But underneath the pain, something new began to stir. Not peace, not yet, but strength. Because the truth wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of his downfall. Ethan thought the worst had passed. He thought that by saying sorry enough times, he could erase years of deceit. But he didn't know who I had become. The woman who once waited for him to come home was gone. What was left was someone colder, sharper, and ready to make him face everything he'd buried. The evidence. The private investigator, Mark Daly, gave me a folder filled with photos and documents. Ethan with Clara and Lila at the zoo. Ethan at a parent-teacher meeting. Ethan holding Clara's hand outside a hospital. Each picture felt like a knife. But pain has a strange way of giving you clarity. I copied everything onto a flash drive. Emails, bank transfers, texts, photos, all of it. Proof of betrayal. Then I waited. The setup. Ethan called a week later. "Ava, please. Let's meet. Just once." I agreed, not because I wanted closure, but because I wanted justice. We met at a small cafe near the pier. He looked tired, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. For a brief second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I told Clara it's over," he said softly. "I'll fix this, Ava. I love you." I smiled, but not the way I used to. "Then prove it," I said. He looked hopeful. "Anything." "Good," I whispered. "Because tomorrow, the truth comes out." He frowned. "What do you mean?" But I didn't answer. I just stood up, left money on the table, and walked away, leaving him with the same confusion he had left me with for years. The exposure. The next morning, I sent an email with every file attached to his company's HR department, Clara, and his parents. Within hours, everything unraveled. Ethan's company suspended him for falsifying travel reimbursements. All those business trips were, in reality, his secret getaways. His parents called me in tears, apologizing for their son's actions. And Clara, she called me. Her voice shook on the phone. You knew about us? I didn't, I said coldly. Not until I saw you in Tacoma. She was silent for a moment. Then she whispered, I didn't know about you either. The line went dead. That was the last time I heard from her. The fall. Ethan showed up at my door 2 days later. Rain dripping from his jacket, his eyes desperate. Ava, please. You've destroyed everything. No, Ethan, I said. You did. He stepped closer, pleading. I can't lose Lila. I can't lose you. You already did, I said, my voice steady. Both of us. He collapsed on the doorstep, sobbing. And for a brief moment, I saw the man I had once loved, broken, human, and small. But pity is not love, and forgiveness is not weakness. I closed the door. The twist. 3 months passed. Divorce papers signed. Property split. I sold the house. Too many ghosts lived there. I moved into a small apartment by the water, started over. Peace was slow, but it came. One day, while organizing my new home office, I received a letter. No return address. Inside was a photo. It was Clara and Lila, smiling on a park bench. And beside them, a man I didn't recognize. On the back, written in neat handwriting. Turns out, he wasn't the only one living a double life. See. I stared at it, stunned. Clara had moved on, with someone else. Maybe she had been playing her own game all along. Maybe Ethan wasn't her only secret either. For the first time in months, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because karma had perfect timing. The reflection. People often ask me if I miss him. I don't. I miss the idea of him, the man I thought he was. But truthfully, I'm grateful now. Because without his lies, I would have never found my strength. Without the betrayal, I would have never known my worth. Life is quieter now. No more late-night tears, no fake phone calls, no pretending. Just me, free. Sometimes when it rains, I think of that night I took off my ring. The night I stopped being a wife and started being myself. And that's the thing about truth. It doesn't set you free gently. It burns through everything first. Final line. I found out my husband had a secret family. But in the end, the real secret was who I became after I discovered it.